Dr. Maya Chen had always been different. While other xenoarchaeologists spent their time carefully cataloging alien artifacts with sterile precision, Maya felt things. She could sense the emotional echoes that clung to ancient objects like invisible fingerprints. Her colleagues at the Titan Research Station thought it was nonsense, but Maya's intuition had led to more breakthrough discoveries than anyone else in her field. Today, that intuition was screaming. The massive alien structure they had uncovered in Titan's subsurface ocean defied everything they knew about the precursors. Most precursor ruins were elegant, almost crystalline in their perfection. This thing was different. It was brutal, functional, built for war. "The energy readings are off the charts," Dr. Petrosky muttered, adjusting his scanner for the 20th time. "Whatever's in there, it's been dormant for at least 50,000 years, but the power systems are still active." Maya pressed her gloved hand against the hull of the structure. The metal was warm, almost alive. Through her environmental suit, she could feel a subtle vibration, like a massive heart beating so slowly that each pulse took minutes. "We shouldn't be here," whispered Dr. Yamato, the team's linguist. "The Galactic Council explicitly forbade excavation of precursor military sites. If they find out—" "The Council can go to hell," Maya interrupted, surprising herself with her vehemence. "Humanity didn't claw its way up from the gravity well of Earth just to let a bunch of jellyfish and gas bags tell us what we can and can't study." The three alien species that dominated the Galactic Council, the Ethereals, the Zephyrians, and the Crystalline Collective, had been guiding humanity's development for the past century. Always helpful, always condescending, always making sure humans stayed in their designated role as the galaxy's maintenance crew and heavy lifters. Maya ran her scanner along the hull until she found what she was looking for. A series of symbols that seemed to shift and change when she wasn't looking directly at them. Precursor writing was notoriously difficult to decipher, but Maya had always had a knack for it. "It's not a ship," she said suddenly. "It's a dock." "What?" Petrosky looked up from his readings. "This whole structure, it's not a vessel. It's a harbor. Look at these symbols. They're repeated in sequences of seven births. 7? She paused, the translation hitting her like a physical blow. 7 judgment ships. The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of their life support systems. "Maya," Yamato said carefully, "what exactly is a judgment ship?" Before Maya could answer, the hull beneath her hand began to glow. The symbols she had been studying pulsed with golden light, and suddenly Maya could read them as easily as if they were written in English. "Warning," she read aloud, her voice hollow. "Harbor of the sleeping judges. By order of the Galactic Hegemony, these vessels are to remain sealed until the terms of the Great Pact are violated. Authorized personnel only. Unauthorized access will result in immediate awakening protocols." "Great Pact?" Petrosky's voice was tight. "What Great Pact?" Maya's hand was still pressed against the glowing symbols, and information was flooding into her mind. Not painful, but overwhelming, like trying to drink from a fire hose. "The Council," she gasped. "They're not the first galactic government. There was another one, the Hegemony, and they made some kind of agreement with... Oh, God." The golden light was spreading now, racing along conduits that Maya hadn't even realized were there. The entire structure was coming alive, and she could feel something vast and ancient stirring in response to her touch. "Maya, get away from there!" Yamato grabbed her shoulder, but Maya couldn't move. The information was still coming, and she was beginning to understand. "The precursors weren't one species," she said, her voice distant. "They were the survivors, the remnants of the galactic hegemony. And when they realized they were going to lose the war, they made a deal. They would go into exile, into the deep dark between galaxies, but they would leave behind guardians. 7 ships that would sleep until... Until what?" Maya's eyes widened as the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Until the terms of the Great Pact were broken, until one species tried to dominate all others, until the galaxy forgot the lessons of the hegemony war. The light was building to a crescendo now, and Maya could hear something that shouldn't be possible through the vacuum of space, the sound of massive engines awakening after millennia of sleep. "The Council," she whispered. "They've been doing exactly what the Pact forbade, keeping humanity suppressed, preventing us from reaching our full potential. They know what humans are capable of, and they're terrified. Maya, we need to leave. Now." Petrosky was backing toward their submersible, but Maya still couldn't move. The connection was complete now, and she could feel the vast minds of the judgment ships reaching out to her across the void. "They've been waiting," she said, wonder creeping into her voice. "For 50,000 years they've been waiting for someone to wake them up, someone who could see the truth." "What truth?" Maya finally turned away from the hull, and her teammates stepped back involuntarily. Her eyes were glowing with the same golden light as the symbols. That humanity was never meant to be servants. We were meant to be inheritors. The structure around them shuddered, and they could see massive sections of the dock beginning to separate. Ancient mechanisms were grinding to life, preparing to release whatever had been sleeping in those 7 berths. "The judgment ships are awakening," Maya said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in their bones. "And they're not just weapons, they're tests, trials. Each one will challenge the galaxy in a different way, and if the current powers can't prove themselves worthy—" She didn't need to finish. They all understood. "Maya," Yamato said urgently, "can you stop this?" Maya considered the question, feeling the vast network of knowledge that was now available to her. The history of the hegemony, the true story of the precursor war, the real reason the Council had worked so hard to keep humanity isolated and weak. "I don't think I want to," she said finally. The first of the judgment ships broke free from its berth in a cascade of ice and metal. It was massive, easily the size of a city, and completely unlike anything in the current galactic fleets. Where modern ships were sleek and efficient, this was a monument to overwhelming force. Weapons that Maya couldn't even identify bristled from its hull, and she could feel the weight of its attention as ancient sensors came online. "They know we're here," she said unnecessarily. Her teammates could feel it too, the sensation of being examined by something vast and patient and utterly alien. But as the ship's scans washed over them, Maya felt something else. Recognition. Approval. "It's scanning our genetics," she realized, looking for something specific. The scan completed, and Maya felt a presence touch her mind. Not hostile, but testing, evaluating. "Child of Terra," a voice said inside her head. "You have awakened the sleeping judges. Are you prepared for what must come?" Maya looked at her terrified colleagues, then back at the massive warship that was now fully free of its dock. 6 more were beginning to stir. "I'm prepared," she said aloud. "Then let the trials begin." The judgment ship turned away from the dock and began to accelerate toward the inner system, toward Earth, toward the heart of human space, where the Galactic Council maintained their advisory offices and kept humanity's development under their careful control. "Maya," Petrosky said urgently, "do you have any idea what you've just done?" Maya watched the ship disappear into the darkness, followed by the growing lights of its 6 companions. She could still feel their presence in her mind, could sense their purpose with crystal clarity. "I've given humanity a chance," she said. "Maybe our last chance." "A chance for what?" "To prove we deserve the galaxy. All of it." The implications hit them all at once. The Galactic Council commanded fleets of millions of ships. They controlled trade routes, resources, entire star systems. If these 7 ancient vessels were planning to challenge that authority, It's going to be a war, Yamato whispered. No, Maya corrected, her eyes still glowing with that alien light. It's going to be a revolution, and humanity is either going to rise up and claim its birthright, or we're going to be judged unworthy and share the fate of every species that's ever disappointed the judges. Above them, the last of the judgment ships broke free from the dock. As it passed overhead, Maya could hear its message echoing in her mind, a countdown timer, marking the days until the trials would begin. 72 hours. Maya smiled, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly alive. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really capable of when they stopped pretending to be grateful for scraps from their betters' table. The sleeping judges were awake. The Great Pact was void. And Maya Chen, xenoarchaeologist and unwitting catalyst for galactic revolution, was the only human who understood what was really at stake. The balance of power that had kept the galaxy stable for 50,000 years was about to shatter like glass, and she couldn't wait to see what would rise from the fragments. Admiral Sarah Reynolds had been commanding the Earth Defense Fleet for 15 years, and in all that time, she had never seen her senior staff look so terrified. The holographic display in the center of the war room showed 7 massive contacts approaching the Sol system at impossible speeds, and every attempt to communicate with them had been met with silence. "Estimated time to Earth orbit?" she asked crisply. 46 hours at current velocity, replied Commander Torres, her voice tight with stress. "But Admiral, these things are massive. Each one registers as larger than our entire 5th Fleet." Reynolds studied the sensor data. The ships, if they were ships, were unlike anything in their databases. Their energy signatures were off the charts. Their drive systems used principles that human science couldn't begin to explain, and their hulls seemed to absorb active scans rather than reflect them. "Any word from the Council?" she asked. "That's complicated, ma'am." Torres pulled up another display, showing hyperspace communication channels. "We've been trying to reach Council Nexus for the past 12 hours. All their channels are dark. No response." Before Reynolds could respond, her communications officer spoke up. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Titan Station. It's Dr. Maya Chen." Reynolds frowned. She knew Chen by reputation. Brilliant, but maverick. The kind of scientist who asked uncomfortable questions and didn't accept diplomatic non-answers. "Put her through." Maya's image appeared on the main screen, and Reynolds was immediately struck by something different about the woman. There was a confidence in her bearing that hadn't been there in her previous reports, and her eyes seemed to hold depths that weren't entirely human. "Admiral Reynolds," Maya said without preamble, "I need you to understand something very important. Those ships approaching Earth aren't invaders. They're judges, and humanity is about to face the most important test in our history." "Dr. Chen, what exactly—" "The Galactic Council has been lying to us for over a century," Maya interrupted. "They're not our allies or our guides. They're our wardens, and they've been keeping us suppressed because they know exactly what humans are capable of when we're free to reach our full potential." Reynolds felt a chill run down her spine. She had always suspected there was more to humanity's relationship with the Council than the official story suggested. "The ships approaching us are called judgment ships," Maya continued. "They were left behind by the precursors as a failsafe. When one species tries to dominate all others, when the balance of power becomes too uneven, the judges awaken to restore equilibrium." "Are you saying these ships are here to attack us?" "No, Admiral. They're here to test us. And if we pass their trials, if we prove ourselves worthy, then humanity will inherit what should have been ours all along: leadership of the galaxy." The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Ma'am," Torres said quietly, "our deep space sensors are picking up massive fleet movements in the outer colonies. It looks like the Council is mobilizing everything they have." Reynolds nodded grimly. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than just 7 mysterious ships. The entire galactic order was shifting, and Earth was at the center of it. "Get me President Martinez," she ordered. "And prepare the fleet for... I don't even know what to prepare for." 3 hours later, Reynolds found herself in the most surreal military briefing of her career. President Martinez was participating via secure hologram from Geneva, while Maya Chen appeared from Titan Station with that same unsettling glow in her eyes. The Joint Chiefs were present, along with representatives from every major Earth nation. "Dr. Chen," the president said, "you're asking us to believe that our entire understanding of galactic politics is wrong." "Not wrong, Mr. President. Incomplete." Maya's voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in their bones. "The Council has been feeding us carefully edited versions of galactic history. They told us about the Precursor War, but they didn't tell us that the evil empire that was defeated was actually a democratic federation that valued individual freedom over collective security." "That's a serious accusation," said General Morrison, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. "It's the truth," Maya replied. "I have access to the judge's memory banks now. I can show you the real history if you're ready to see it." Before anyone could object, Maya gestured, and the air above the conference table shimmered. Suddenly, they were witnessing events from 50,000 years ago, as if they were standing in the middle of a vast space battle. They saw the final desperate stand of the galactic hegemony against the combined fleets of 3 species that would eventually become the modern Council. They watched as massive ships, the ancestors of the 7 judges now approaching Earth, fought impossible odds to buy time for refugee fleets to escape into the void between galaxies. The Zephyrians, Ethereals, and Crystalline Collective didn't defeat the hegemony because they were righteous, Maya explained, as the battle raged around them. They won because they were willing to sacrifice billions of their own people to overwhelm hegemony defenses. They turned the war into a numbers game and accepted losses that the hegemony couldn't match. The hologram shifted, showing the aftermath. Worlds burning, entire star systems empty of life. The cost of the Council's victory had been almost beyond comprehension. When it was over, Maya continued, the survivors of the hegemony made a deal. They would go into exile, but they would leave behind guardians. The judges would sleep until the galaxy faced the same crisis again, one power dominating all others, stifling diversity, preventing growth. The hologram faded, leaving the room in shaken silence. "And you believe that's what the Council has become?" President Martinez asked. "Look at the evidence, Mr. President. How many new species have been welcomed into the galactic community in the past 1,000 years? How many worlds have been allowed to develop their own governments without Council oversight? How many times have the Council's advisors overruled local decisions because they weren't in line with galactic stability?" Reynolds felt pieces clicking into place, the strange restrictions on human ship designs. The subtle but persistent pressure to keep Earth's military appropriately modest. The way human colonies were always established in marginal systems, while the Council species controlled all the prime real estate. "So what happens now?" she asked. Maya's smile was predatory. "Now humanity gets tested. The judges will present us with 7 trials. If we pass them all, if we prove ourselves worthy successors to the hegemony, then the galaxy becomes ours to lead. If we fail, we get the same treatment the hegemony got," Morrison finished grimly. "Worse," Maya corrected. "The judges don't give second chances. Humanity would be classified as a failed species and terminated. Every human world, every colony, every ship, gone." The weight of that statement settled over the room like a physical presence. "What kind of trials?" Reynolds asked. "I don't know all the details yet," Maya admitted, "but the first one is already beginning. The judge ships are broadcasting a message across the galaxy. Every species, every government, every faction is being informed that the Great Pact is void and that new leadership will be selected through trial by combat." "Trial by combat?" The president leaned forward. "You mean war Not exactly. The message is complex. But the essence is this. Any species that believes it deserves to lead the galaxy can challenge humanity directly. But they have to do it alone without council backing or support. And if they lose... Maya's grin widened, and for a moment Reynolds saw something almost feral in the woman's expression. If they lose, they become subordinate to humanity. Permanently. That's insane, Morrison muttered. Even if we could handle one council species at a time, they'll never agree to fight separately. They'll gang up on us. Actually, they can't, Maya replied. The judges are enforcing the rules. Any species that tries to interfere in another's trial will be immediately disqualified and face termination. The council's greatest strength, their ability to present a united front, has just become irrelevant. Reynolds felt something stirring in her chest. Not fear, but excitement. For the first time in her military career, humanity wasn't being asked to be reasonable, diplomatic, or modest. They were being invited to fight for their place in the galaxy. "How long do we have to prepare?" she asked. "The first challenge has already been issued," Maya replied. "The Zephyrians consider themselves the premier military force in the galaxy. They've demanded the right to face humanity in single combat to determine who has the stronger claim to leadership." "When?" "Their fleet is already en route to the Sol system. They'll arrive in 18 hours. The room erupted in frantic discussion, but Reynolds found herself strangely calm. She had always known this day would come. Not the specific circumstances, perhaps, but the moment when humanity would have to stop pretending to be grateful for council protection and show the galaxy what they were really made of. "How many ships?" she asked, cutting through the noise. 1,200 vessels, including their new Dreadnought class, Maya replied. "On paper, they outgun us 3-1. "On paper," Reynolds mused. "Dr. Chen, you said you have access to the judge's memory banks. Do you have tactical information? Weaknesses we can exploit?" Maya's eyes flared brighter. "Better than that, Admiral. I have the complete technical specifications for every ship class in their fleet, including the ones they think are secret." Around the table, the mood began to shift. The fear was still there, but it was being joined by something else. Something that Reynolds recognized from her days as a young officer fighting pirates in the outer colonies. Bloodlust. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Martinez said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were facing, "it appears we're about to find out what happens when someone gives humanity permission to stop playing nice." Reynolds stood, already mentally organizing the defense of Earth. "Dr. Chen, I need everything you can give me on Zephyrian tactics and technology. General Morrison, mobilize every ship we have. I want them armed, fueled, and ready for combat within 12 hours. "Admiral," Morrison said carefully, "even with perfect intelligence, we're still outnumbered. Are you sure we can win this?" Reynolds looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leadership. For over a century, these same positions had been held by people who prided themselves on being reasonable, diplomatic, and peacekeeping. Now she was looking at the awakening of something that had been sleeping in humanity's collective unconscious for generations. "General," she said, "we're about to remind the galaxy why every human colony ship carried enough weapons to glass a planet, and why our primitive ancestors conquered their own world with nothing but sharpened sticks and bad attitudes." She turned to Maya, whose golden eyes were now blazing with anticipation. "Dr. Chen, when these trials are over, when the dust settles and the galaxy has new leadership, I want you to remember something." "What's that, Admiral?" "You didn't just wake up 7 sleeping warships. You woke up humanity itself." Outside, in the cold darkness of space, the judgment ships took up positions around Earth's orbit, their ancient sensors watching and measuring as the species they had chosen prepared to justify their existence. The trials were about to begin. Admiral Reynolds stood on the bridge of the ESV Defiance, humanity's newest and most powerful warship, watching as 1,200 Zephyrian vessels dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Their formation was perfect, a three-dimensional lattice of death that spoke of military precision refined over millennia. "Impressive," she murmured, then turned to her tactical officer. "Commander Hayes, are our guests in position?" "Yes, ma'am. The judgment ships have formed a perimeter around the outer system. They're broadcasting the trial rules on all frequencies." Reynolds nodded. The rules were simple enough. Single combat between species, no outside interference, winner takes all. What made it interesting was how the judges defined single combat when it came to fleets. "Signal from the Zephyrian flagship," reported Communications Officer Park. "They're demanding our surrender. Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, showing High Commander Vex Thul, supreme leader of the Zephyrian military. He was an imposing figure even by Zephyrian standards, tall, reptilian, with scales that shifted color to display his emotional state. Right now, they were the deep gold of supreme confidence. "Humans," he hissed, his voice carrying the arrogance of a species that had never known defeat. "You will surrender immediately and accept termination. Your resistance is meaningless. We have ruled the star lanes for 10,000 years. You have existed in space for barely 100. Reynolds smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Hi, Commander. I have a counter-proposal. You can surrender to us and accept subordinate status. We promise to be more reasonable rulers than the Council has been." Vex Thul's scales rippled through several colors before settling on deep crimson, the Zephyrian equivalent of laughter. "Delusional apes. You will learn why the galaxy fears Zephyrian might." The transmission cut off, and almost immediately Reynolds felt the subtle vibration through the ship's hull that meant the enemy was charging weapons. "All ships," she broadcast on the fleet frequency. "This is Admiral Reynolds. Today we show the galaxy what humans do when someone threatens our home. Today we remind the universe that we are the descendants of people who looked at hostile environments and said, 'I bet we can live there.' Today we prove that humanity doesn't just deserve a seat at the galactic table. We deserve to own the damn table." Around her, the bridge crew straightened. In the depths of space, 300 human warships began to move. It should have been suicide. The Zephyrians had superior numbers, better technology, and thousands of years of experience. What they didn't have was Maya Chen. "Dr. Chen," Reynolds said into her comm unit, "are you ready?" From the secure chamber 3 decks below, Maya's voice came back clear and confident. "Ready, Admiral. I have full access to their tactical networks. Every move they make, I'll know about it before their own captains do." This was humanity's first advantage. While the Zephyrians relied on traditional communication channels, Maya's connection to the judgment ships allowed her to tap into quantum-level information streams that most species didn't even know existed. "Incoming missiles," called Hayes. 8,000 warheads, multiple targeting profiles." "Countermeasures," Reynolds ordered calmly. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. Instead of deploying conventional point defense systems, the human fleet did something unprecedented. They used their cargo transporters as weapons. Every single missile warhead was caught in transporter beams at the moment of detonation and materialized inside empty cargo bays that had been specifically reinforced for this purpose. The explosions were contained, channeled through energy conversion systems, and fed directly into the ship's weapon banks. "Impossible," whispered Commander Hayes. "They just turned the Zephyrian attack into ammunition for our guns." But Reynolds was already thinking 3 moves ahead. "Maya, what's their next move?" "They're confused," came Maya's voice, and there was genuine amusement in it. "Their tactical computers are suggesting this was some kind of sensor malfunction. They're recalibrating for a second missile wave." Let them, Reynolds said. All ships prepare for Phase 2. And remember, we're not trying to destroy their fleet. We're trying to make a point. The second Zephyrian attack was even more massive than the first. 20,000 missiles launched in a coordinated barrage that should have overwhelmed any possible defense. Instead, the human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that seemed completely random. Except they weren't random. They were fractally chaotic, a mathematics concept that the Council species had always dismissed as merely theoretical. Each human ship was following a precise mathematical formula that made their movements utterly unpredictable while maintaining perfect formation integrity. The Zephyrian missiles, programmed to target based on predictive algorithms, couldn't lock on to anything. They flew through empty space or collided with each other in spectacular displays of wasted firepower. How? Vex Thul's voice crackled over the comm, no longer arrogant but genuinely confused. How are you doing this? Human ingenuity, Reynolds replied pleasantly. We're very good at finding new ways to use old ideas. For instance, did you know that your shield harmonics create a perfect resonance cascade if you hit them with precisely modulated graviton pulses? She didn't wait for his reply. All ships. Fire. The human response wasn't missiles or plasma beams or any of the conventional weapons the Zephyrians expected. Instead, every human ship fired graviton pulse arrays, technology that most species used for mining asteroids. The beams themselves were harmless, doing no damage at all to the Zephyrian hulls, but they passed right through the shields and created standing wave patterns in the artificial gravity systems of every enemy ship. Suddenly, 1,200 Zephyrian vessels found themselves experiencing gravity fluctuations that ranged from 0G to 15 times normal. Crews were slammed into bulkheads or found themselves floating helplessly. Equipment that wasn't properly secured became deadly projectiles. Ships that had maintained perfect formation for hours began to drift as their pilots lost control. "This is impossible," Vex Thul gasped, his transmission distorted by the gravity waves wreaking havoc on his flagship. "These are mining tools, not weapons." "Everything's a weapon if you're creative enough," Reynolds replied. "But we're just getting started." Maya's voice crackled through the comm. "Admiral, their command structure is fracturing. Half their captains are asking for orders, and the other half are trying to retreat to minimum safe distance." "Don't let them," Reynolds ordered. "All ships pursue. Remember, we want them alive and unhurt, but completely helpless." What followed was unlike any space battle in galactic history. The humans didn't try to destroy the Zephyrian fleet. Instead, they systematically demonstrated that every single advantage the enemy thought they possessed was actually a weakness. Superior numbers? The humans used swarm tactics that turned the Zephyrian formation against itself, causing friendly fire incidents that disabled dozens of ships without human weapons ever firing. Better shields? The humans used harmonic resonance to turn the shields into prisons, trapping the Zephyrian ships inside their own defensive systems. More powerful weapons? The humans used tractor beams and gravity manipulation to redirect Zephyrian fire back at their own fleet. "Surrender!" Reynolds finally broadcast when half the enemy fleet was disabled and the other half was too confused to mount effective resistance. "Acknowledge human dominance and accept subordinate status." There was a long pause. Then Vex Thul's voice came back, defeated and hollow. We surrender. How? How did a species with such primitive technology defeat us so completely?" Reynolds looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were human faces, tired, determined, innovative, stubborn. The faces of people who had looked at impossible problems their entire history and found ways around, over, or through them. "High Commander," she said gently, "you made the same mistake that every bully in human history has made. You assumed that because we didn't fight the way you expected, we didn't know how to fight at all." The transmission ended, and almost immediately the judgment ships began broadcasting a new message throughout the galaxy. The first trial was complete. Humanity had proven their tactical superiority over the Zephyrians, but the celebrations were cut short by Maya's voice over the comm. "Admiral, we have a problem. The Ethereals are already mobilizing their fleet, and they're not planning to wait for the formal challenge period. They're going to attack while our ships are still dealing with Zephyrian prisoners." Reynolds felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. "How long do we have?" 6 hours, maybe 7. Around the bridge, the crew exchanged glances. They had just won an impossible victory, but there was no time to rest, no time to repair damaged systems or treat wounded crew members. "Signal the fleet," Reynolds ordered. "All ships prepare for immediate combat operations, and get me President Martinez." When the president's hologram appeared, Reynolds could see the strain on his face. "Sarah, our deep space sensors are picking up movement from crystalline collective space as well. It looks like all 3 council species are planning to hit us simultaneously." "That's against the trial rules," Reynolds protested. Maya's voice cut in, and there was something different about it now. Something darker. "The rules are only enforceable if the judges want to enforce them, and I think they're curious to see how we handle a truly impossible situation." Reynolds closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders. When she opened them again, she was smiling. "Mr. President, please send a message to every human colony, every research station, every mining platform and freight hauler in our space. Tell them that Earth needs every ship that can mount a weapon. Sarah, even with everything we can muster, we'll still be outnumbered 50-1. Yes, sir, we will. And when we win anyway, the galaxy will finally understand why they should have left us alone in the first place." She turned to Maya, whose golden eyes were now blazing like stars. "Dr. Chen, can you access the technical specifications for the other council fleets?" "Already done, Admiral. And I have a few ideas about how we can level the playing field." "Good, because we're about to show the galaxy the most important thing about humans. We don't fight fair. We don't give up, and we absolutely refuse to lose when the stakes are our children's future." Outside, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as humanity prepared for the battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The sleeping warships watched in silent judgment as 3 ancient species mobilized everything they had to crush a young race that had dared to challenge the established order. But Maya Chen, the girl who had awakened the judges and shattered the world's balance, stood in her chamber surrounded by golden light and smiled. She could feel the collective will of humanity burning like a flame across space. Every person who had ever looked at the stars and dreamed of walking among them. Every parent who wanted their children to inherit a galaxy where being human wasn't a limitation. The real trials were just beginning. And humanity had never been more ready to prove they deserved to inherit the universe.